And now for the return of our second favorite, Rachel. This week delivered another round of very bad polls for Donald Trump's reelection prospects, especially the Quinnipiac poll that showed Donald Trump losing in one-on-one matchups with the top 5 Democratic presidential candidates and losing to the top 4 of those candidates by double-digit margins. Quinnipiac's poll showed Joe Biden at 54% against Donald Trump's 38%, Bernie Sanders ahead of Trump 53-39%, Elizabeth Warren ahead of Trump 52-40%, Kamala Harris is ahead of Trump 51-40%, Pete Buttigieg is ahead of Trump 49-40 in the Quinnipiac poll. And so, as of tonight, the latest polling supports political scientist Rachel Bitecofer's election modeling, showing that whoever the Democrats nominate for president will beat Donald Trump in the Electoral College. Rachel Bitecofer is using the same election modeling that allowed her to predict the big blue wave of 2018 long before most people saw that coming. Joining us now is political science professor Rachel Bitecofer with the Wasson Center for Public Policy at Christopher Newport University in Newport News, Virginia. And Rachel, it's really great to have you here. This is your third round here, here on The Last Word. And I actually want to once again start from the beginning and step through this analysis. And you know, there's a lot of emotional reaction to this kind of talk now because I think there's such a shocked electorate, especially on the Democratic side, that Donald Trump won before. And I believe that there is an exaggerated notion of Donald Trump as some kind of Superman politically, including in the media, which overreacted to Donald Trump squeaking out the Electoral College. Right. And I have not given up looking at polling information in the traditional way. Right. And all of the polling information on Donald Trump is disastrous and always has been in terms of reelection since Inauguration Day. You look at that, but you go way beyond that. And so talk us through how you get to the point where tonight you can say you're sure that you can either say the Democrat will get 278 or possibly put a better way, Donald Trump will lose 278 electoral votes to the Democrat, whoever that is.
Yeah, and it really is important to go back to that night in November in 2016 and think about how the mood of the electorate was. And there was just such a sense. Right now we have this invincibility complex for Trump. He's basically the Terminator. You can't kill him. Nothing will stick to him. And back then, everybody believed the opposite, that there was no way he would be president. I mean, nobody entertained seriously that they were going to wake up on Wednesday morning to President Trump. And that attitude really set the tone, I think, for the entire debate between Trump and Clinton. It really fired up a lot of the division within the Democratic caucus between Bernie Democrats and Hillary supporters. And this assumption, certainly bioed by the forecasting models and the polling, particularly in those crucial swing states, Wisconsin and Michigan, that just never showed him in contention. That gave people a sense of security, that they did not need to show up with ferocity. And we are talking about a whole different ballgame now.
Okay, so stage one is mood of the electorate.
Exactly.
Totally different in 2020 from 2016.
Yes.
There was a certain amount of overconfidence that Hillary Clinton would win, which meant a lower turnout on the Democratic side. There are voters, you are sure, who if they were told, if you don't vote tomorrow, Donald Trump will win, they would have gone to the polls but didn't. So that turnout will show up in 2020.
Absolutely.
The other thing that's in your analysis that's relevant to that, especially in those swing states that you just mentioned, is the third party vote for Jill Stein, for example, in some of those states made the difference in the Electoral College for those states. And you insist that won't happen again. That vote will not go to the third party.
Yeah, well, we will see some third party balloting. And I think the Arizona Senate race last year is a great example where even after the Green Party candidate withdrew and tried to beg their supporters not to protest ballot, 2% did go there. And it ended up being decisive. Kristen Semena still pulled out a victory there. So I'm thinking probably around 2% of the national vote.
It'll be down from what it was.
Yes, but we're talking about in 2016. I mean, I don't
extraordinarily
understand.
High.
Extraordinarily high. I mean, the story in 2016 is not about the white working class who had been involved in a long-term realignment away from the Democrats. And really, the last time they got excited about a Democrat, it was Bill Clinton, a white, Southern gentleman from Arkansas. The story of 2016 is much more about who did not vote and who showed up and voted a protest ballot than it is about white working class voters who really just did what they have been doing for a long time, and that's trending Republican.
I mean, the simplest stage of this analysis, actually, and there's more to it, which we're going to get to, is all you have to do is reduce the third-party voting from 2016 on the Green Party side of third-party voting, and Donald Trump loses. That's all you have to do.
Yeah, you could do just that one tweak in those critical states. And I mean, keep in mind, Florida has the same problem. We don't talk about it a lot, but the same problem down there occurred. I mean, we're talking about all of these states being decided by less than 1%. Donald Trump did not win a majority in any of those states. He carried them with a plurality of the vote because of the 5-6% that was siphoned off to third-party voters. So absolutely, that is enough there. But then when we factor in the languished turnout among millennials and African-American voters and Latinos, I mean, that's just a quadruple factor of, Democratic malaise that we are not going to see 100%, no matter how bad Democrats might be at turning out voters. There's this natural passion now. It's like kerosene on this demographic tsunami that's been laying there just waiting to vote.
So you first saw this new turnout phenomenon developing in the state of Virginia in their statewide elections, their state elections in 2017. You then, learning from that, applied it to the House races. And that's what gave you the essence of your prediction was there's going to be a turnout in these 2018 House races that will deliver these seats to Democrats. It's going to be extremely energized and all of Orange County congressional seats can flip from Republican to Democrat because of this energy. And you're using that model now on the presidential election, and you're saying, in addition to this third-party vote, which will be different in this next election, there will be this energized turnout on the Democratic side. But you also say there'll be an energized turnout for Donald Trump.
That's
and so
exactly
these are going to compete.
That's exactly right. And that was the one surprising feature of 2018. And I'll come back to that in a second. But I really want to hammer a point home. This is the point. The Democratic enthusiasm has to have the conditions for it. So when we look at these 40 districts that I identified with my model, they all share certain factors. They're suburban. There's a high rate of college education in them, a decent rate of diversity in terms of the racial and ethnic diversity of the district. Those were places that I could look at and say, this is going to see a huge turnout surge. And, that's why even though the polling hadn't caught up in Orange County on July 1st and the House ratings were, lean Republican or toss up in the other Raiders, I knew for sure they were going to flip. And even after election night, when, if you'll remember, those districts, they took a long time to flip. Yeah. I was not in panic at all. I sat there for 5 days. I mean, I just listened to a podcast with Katie Porter where she was worried that, she might not win ultimately. And I
should have called you.
I was like, I wish Katie Porter had seen my analysis. She would have felt so much better, right? Because it was just a mathematical certainty that if you have a passionate turnout, the catalyst, you're going to see that. But with the Republicans, I expected, Republicans vote. They're easier to vote in terms of their demographics, and also the Republican Party is just strategically superior to the Democrats on how to get people to vote. But I didn't expect to see them maintain their turnout advantage. And in every district that I analyze in a forthcoming analysis, I'll show that even though Democratic turnout surge is bigger, and it was a massive surge, they still underperformed the turnout of Republicans.
And so you've now applied this to the Electoral College map, and you're looking at the districts, the basically areas within the Electoral College map that say there's a lot of college-educated voters. There's the kind of voter profile that you say will turn out in surprisingly big numbers. And in shorthand, that's how you're getting to 278.
That's exactly right. So I'm looking, instead of a district, I'm looking at statewide factors. I'm looking at, urban populations, because that's one advantage Democrats have in, there are disadvantages to the electoral college system, certainly. But every state has urban centers. Some states have more than others, and every urban center has suburban populations. And so case in point, Texas, right? Texas is ground zero of the 2020 cycle. Democrats left several Texas House seats on the table in 2018 because they're not thinking about them in terms of these, my model, the way I identify competition. And now I think they're starting to recognize, the suburbs of Dallas, not only are they potential pickups for the House, those are the places that if Democrats want to make a serious play at the Texas Senate or a serious play at, flipping that in the Electoral College, which, by the way, would knock the presidency for the long term off of the Republicans' agenda. That's where it would happen, in the suburbs of Dallas and Houston and major urban areas.
Professor Rachel Bitecofer, our second favorite Rachel. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. We're going to have you back a lot to keep us posted on this.